Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. I'm Gianni Battici, your host, and I'm joined by co-host Mr. Dean Jones. Dean, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Yeah, glad to be back. Well, that might have been good luck, actually, not doing the show on Friday, because I've actually had a good week. Saka as captain, and yeah, he, along with quite a few others, delivered for me this week. So yeah, it's been a very nice weekend, mate.
I wish you were doing the Friday stream with me and the world number 4 at the time, Ali Hangarov, who no doubt will be in the chat very shortly, because if you had been in the stream, maybe you would have persuaded me to captain Saka. I didn't, and massive regret there, although I wasn't that close. I was always on Martinelli if it was going to be an Arsenal player, but then that 120 minutes put me off. But look, good to see so many in the chat on this Monday night. No FPL for a little bit, yet still you guys are here with us. Our chasers, Nuclear and Kev and Derek and Leo. Haley's with us and Eddie, FPL Marshall. And look, world number 1, Ali Hangarov. He's now world number 1. I'm sure we'll be back in the chat this evening as well. We did say he'd be joining. So Dean, our friend Ali did go from world number 4 to 1. He captained Saka. He owns Felix as well, which is a nice differential. And he owns Tyrone Mings, who got like 12 points. And Mings has been delivering so many points for him.
He really has. I can't believe, I've noticed quite a few people getting Mings into their team now. The guy in my mini league, he's got Mings in his, he's top of the mini league, and he's got Mings too. I'm like, what am I missing here? Like, what? Tyrone Mings is like an FPL must-have. What? We're here.
And when you look at Emery, he is a manager that does keep clean O's because he's kind of counter-attacking and fairly cautious. And you look at his teams and they do keep clean sheets. I think his Villarreal team was similar. So, yeah, it's not a bad investment. And I think Mings is like 4.4 or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good value. Can you trust Villa? Not really up to now, but I mean, they've got to have a strong end to the season. I mean, these players are all basically playing for their future and making sure they're part of the plans for the next couple of years under Emery, because they're expecting this to go really well and be challenging for Europe and stuff. So, I mean, Mark says Moreno over Mings every time for me, and I think probably that is the eventual answer. But at the moment, it is very difficult to overlook Mings, and it might be one that I have to keep my eye on in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think we definitely like Moreno on this pod, Mark. Dean and I have spoken about how next season we think he'll be a real good asset, because we're worried he's going to share some minutes with Luke Dean, although it's good to see him starting the last couple. I've just seen in the chat, FPL Giuseppe's on the away end tonight. Because I'm on the other side of the screen. It's Gianni, not Giuseppe. Gianni is not short for anything. And my dad was actually going to call me Giuseppe, but my mum didn't want me to be called Giuseppe.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was down to Giuseppe or Giovanni, and then they went Gianni because my granddad was Giovanni and my uncle's Giuseppe, of course.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Someone's got it.
Yeah, and mum was like, no, I don't necessarily want a name just because it's already in your family. And my dad's favourite footballer at the time was the golden boy of Italian football in like the 70s was Gianni Rivera, who won the Ballon d'Or as an AC Milan player. 60 odd caps for Italy, but won the Ballon d'Or in the Champions League. So my dad was sort of happy with that compromise. He was like, yeah, I like Rivera, so we'll go with Gianni.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like that, mate. Yeah, but I hadn't even thought about it, but we are the wrong way around this week. Yeah, true.
Yeah, having an affair.
People keep asking me about Fulham. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. I'm not going to address that yet, but trust me, we will be having a therapy session in about 15 minutes.
I love that. I really want to get your take. So stay tuned for Dean's Fulham rant coming in very, very soon in the notebook section, about 10 minutes time. We've also got my eye test report coming up just before that. We got Pimp My Team. We'll be showing our teams. Dean had a worldy week. And then we're going to be looking at some fixtures. Now we know way more about the blanks, the doubles. We can tell you where we think we should go with chip strategy, depending on what chips you've got left as well. So we'll have a little bit of a team clinic there as well. Good. Thank you, Leo. He was a top player. Guys, good to see so many new faces in the chat. If you are new around here, good to see so many new ones. Give us a like. But also, if you're new, more importantly, feel free to hit that subscribe button. We do these streams every Monday and Friday, and throughout the international break, we're still going to do them. We've got some really interesting style shows to come away from the norm on Friday and Monday, so stay tuned for that. Dean, can I get your opinion just before we move on to FPL? And there's so much to go through from the weekend on Napoli and that Champions League draw. Who do you think are favourites for the champs? And then tell me about how good Napoli are and what sort of chance they've got.
Well, there's no logic behind this, but Real Madrid are favourites to win the Champions League. Like, there's no logic in terms of like, well, they've got the easy half of the draw or anything like that. It's just Real Madrid. And the fact that they're now not going to win La Liga because they're 12 points behind Barcelona means, for me, it even increases their chances of winning the Champions League again. And they're also behind in the Copa del Rey against Barca, so there's more need than ever. And they've got Chelsea, I think Madrid probably do edge that one. But Napoli, like, what an unbelievable opportunity! Like, they should at least get to the final of this competition. Like, once they get to the final, who knows? Like, one-off game against Real Madrid or Bayern, whoever it ends up being, not going to be easy, obviously. But what a season for Napoli! Like, this is just absolutely unbelievable. It's been amazing to watch, to be honest. I did not have any faith in them at the start of the season. When this started to take off, I thought, well, they'll just fall off a cliff, won't they? There's no way that they can maintain this sort of form. It's been absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's been helped. Inter Milan have had a very, very poor season. AC Milan haven't had any sort of momentum to continue from last season. So they've taken the league by storm, and that obviously helps them now transfer that into the Champions League because they haven't got to worry about the week-by-week stuff. And actually, they'll be able to rest players domestically to keep it.
That's huge, isn't it?
Those Champions League matches, which should be great. I mean, there's always the worry that the consistency wears off or whatever, but I would look at it as a positive.
And yes, it is a good draw. Like, of course, it's a good half of the draw to be on. But please don't think in the semi-final Benfica is like, oh, that's an easy route to the final, because I think Benfica will beat Inter. Benfica are a seriously good team. And actually, when you look at some of those Portuguese teams, look what Sporting Lisbon did to Arsenal. Look what Porto have done in the Champions League in the last couple of years. There is real quality in those three teams. So Benfica,
they'll be disrespected. They'll be disrespected, no doubt. Like on a global basis, like people
they have
look
been
at
already.
Benfica.
Everyone's saying it's so easy. Napoli walk into the final. It's like no. Benfica are serious opposition. They top their group of PSG and Juve.
Behind Napoli and Arsenal, they're probably the most informed team in Europe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that for sure, but like I would imagine the sort of results and performances they've been putting out regularly, I'd probably put them in at third in terms of like the best teams around right now. So I mean, write them off at your peril for sure.
Yeah, one defeat all season, I think, for Benfica. Let's move on to FPL, and we have got some great stuff coming up. So look, let's go through what we saw at the weekend with my eye test report. Here we go. Eye test. There were some players that caught the eye. I've got 4 players. I'm going to run through them fairly quickly. Dean, I'll get your take on all 4. So up first on the Friday night game, we saw Esak play well. FPL Twitter was speaking about Esak like it was prime Ronaldo, though. Honestly, I didn't quite understand the hype. Sure, Newcastle are due an extra double game week, and they've got some nice fixtures. They double in 29, and they're due another double. But this isn't a team that score loads of goals. And yes, against Newcastle, they had lots of chances, but they only scored 2, one a late penalty. And sure, Esak got them both. But this is a player that's been inconsistent. And I was going to say inconsistent at Newcastle, but I think, and I've not followed his career that closely, but I think I'm right in saying he's had one really good season. The rest of the time, he's been sort of pretty average. So a player that's not the most consistent, he, for me, still isn't an FPL option, but I understand why people are getting excited because he looks so good. But he was playing Nottingham Forest, and he is in a team that doesn't score tons of goals. He's also competing with Callum Wilson, who is a favourite of Eddie Howe. So in the next 4 games, he might start 2 or 3 of them. He's probably not going to start 4 in 4. And he gets injured all the time. So for me, he's still not an FPL asset. And people perhaps getting a little bit too carried away. He's not a buy yet for me. I don't know your take, Dean. He did look good, but it was just it was one game.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. He's not consistent enough, and I don't trust him. The season before coming into Newcastle, stats weren't great. 10 goals and 41 appearances in Spain. Like, that's not really the sort of stats that I'm going to be looking for in an FPL striker. Maybe he hits hot form now, but again, like, there's no real reason to trust those numbers coming in now. Like Newcastle, as you say, they don't tend to give teams a good hiding. They're not very prolific in those terms. They're trustworthy in terms of not losing games, but I just don't know. And it doesn't also take a lot for Esak to drop back out the team. The consistency of starts might not even be there, let alone goals.
Yeah, Yeah, completely agree on that one. In the chat, we got some comments. Yeah, he is very young, says Mark. Nuka saying he could be the next Ibra. I mean, yeah, they're both Swedish, but very different style players.
He won't.
Yeah, I'm not.
He's young. He's 23. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but like he's got a long way to go.
Yeah. And look, big price tag as well, but perhaps we're blinkered a little bit by that as well, by going, at 60 million, he must be an elite player. It's like, no, they probably paid a little bit too much. But
yeah.
Elsewhere to mention, and I'm picking up teams that I like here, and obviously players. Leicester drew 1-1 with Brentford. Sure, all eyes were on Maddison. As a non-owner, I was happy with Maddison getting one attacking return only because he's definitely due, and Maddison's a player I want in my team ASAP. But Harvey Barnes scored the goal, and Barnes came back into the 11. Now, Rodgers does this really weird thing where he just has some random formation and selection, and he will drop an informed player. And the week before against Chelsea, he decided to match Chelsea up and go with wing backs, and therefore Harvey Barnes was the fall guy. Harvey Barnes has been playing quite well. I think he's got 10-ish goals this season. So against Brentford, who play a 4-3-3, he was like, yeah, I can do 4-3-3 again. Harvey Barnes is back in the team. Harvey Barnes scores the goal. And he looked really dangerous. And I just think Harvey Barnes could be a bit of a differential punt going into this double game week Leicester have got. So Leicester have got some great fixtures. Arguably in the double, theirs is as good as any's. They play Palace and Villa. And then after that, they play Bournemouth. All the teams involved in the relegation battle, and look, there's 8-9 teams there, Leicester are one of the few I would consider for FPL options. I think they'll be fine because they'll score enough goals. And their fixtures after that Bournemouth game, yeah, it's City, but then it's Wolves, Leeds, Everton, Fulham, Liverpool, Newcastle, West Ham to finish the season. So the last three aren't great, but between like 30 and 34, they've got some really nice fixtures. And for me, I'm going to be investing in Maddison. I might even go double up on Maddison and Barnes because I think there's goals in that team. What do you reckon, Dean? They played good enough football to score enough goals, right?
They do, yeah. It's so hard to know when those goals are coming, like which fixtures they're going to deliver in. Like they'll be all right. I'm sure they'll stay up this season, and that will come courtesy of a couple, 2 or 3, like probably resounding wins, like scoring 2 or 3. I just don't know exactly when they're going to come. And that's the problem with Leicester assets for me that I've just never nailed. I've never picked them, Maddison or Harvey Barnes, at the right time. It used to be obviously you just have Vardy in there and that would just cover it for however long.
Or Mahrez.
Or Mahrez, yeah. And but those days are gone. So I keep thinking about bringing Maddison in. I keep opting against it and picking a safer option. I think at the moment I'm going to continue to do that, to be honest.
Our boy Ali went Maddison in last week, which was a move I liked. Let's move on to another team scoring goals, but another team threatened by relegation. And that's Jack Harrison. I wasn't sure under the new manager we'd see many goals, defence first, but we are seeing them. And one thing we're also seeing is Jack Harrison getting 90. Now, he wasn't really a 90-minute man under Jesse Marsch. He was usually a starter, not always. Wasn't guaranteed a spot under Jesse Marsch, who had phases of sort of Somerville and Nonto playing a lot in similar roles. Harrison's played 90 in the last 2. And in both these games, I think we've seen the likes of Somerville and Nonto taking some benchings and coming off early. It feels like it's one of those plus Harrison. And then Aronson's also getting game time, sort of playing in that number 10 role. But Harrison, when he's secure and safe of minutes, Harrison always always in FPL feels like a threat. Minutes has been an issue. But yeah, got the goal at the weekend. Against Brighton in game week 27, he got a goal and an assist. He's often on some of the set pieces. He's definitely one to monitor, Jack Harrison. The fixtures go for Leeds, Arsenal and Forest in a double, and then it's Palace. And they still play Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth before the end of the season. So again, they're a team I quite like. I just don't know if I'm going to have those midfield spots available. And I probably prefer the Leicester guys, but he's an option. He's 5.7 million. And I think Leeds will be safe. And I think that was a huge 6-pointer against Wolves.
Yeah, it was. I didn't see it coming. I have to say, I thought Wolves were safe. I really did. And they're not. Still think they'll be okay, but did not expect that outcome. Harrison had actually been frustrating Leeds fans a little bit. I think they wanted a bit more from him a few weeks ago. But the last 2 weeks, he has delivered. On his day, he's the best player in that team. Yeah. And we're starting to see that a bit more now. So, yeah, they'll be more interested in him in the summer. But for now, Leeds need to make the most of Jack Harrison for sure.
Yeah, and he was really close to a Leicester move, wasn't he? And again, I guess it was under Jesse Marsh, but it looked like Marsh didn't fancy him and he was kind of up for grabs. But yeah, fair play. New manager loves him.
Absolutely, yeah. Went right to the wire, that move, and obviously fell through at the last minute. Leeds pulled the plug. I think it was the guys from San Francisco that obviously half own Leeds decided not to go through with that one. They wanted to keep him, and it's turned out to be a decision that might actually end up keeping him in the Premier League. So quite good one.
Quiz question for you guys in the chat. Let's see who gets it first. Let's see who's been looking at some of the numbers this weekend. Which player had the most goal attempts, the most shots in the box, and the most shots on target in game week 28? Any ideas? The same player achieved all those three things: the most goal attempts, the most shots, and the most shots in target. Any guesses coming in? Yes. Tech, XEO, and Damien, and David, and Matthew. Our boy Kai Havertz, who Ali said we should be captaining. A few thought Odegaard and Esak and Martinelli and Saka, but loads, Matoma, loads have got Havertz there, Matthew and Michael as well. Kai Havertz, was he lucky to get the return in the end because it was a penalty? No, because you pick penalty takers for a reason. But also, fair play. I think 3 good headed attempts. One of them should have scored. Perhaps the other 2, one was a good save, one went wide. But he is getting the love. And he's getting the love because he's in a system that works for him. The wing-backs, Chilwell and Reece James, are so good for Havertz because they get service into the box. But also, when Felix is playing well, and boy, is Felix playing well, then you see the best of Havertz. I think that's a brilliant partnership. And I think with Nkunku in that team next season, some lot to be happy about at Chelsea in that front three. Shame they won't be playing European football or Champions League next year, but that front three should look really good, Dean. What do you reckon?
Should, yeah. I mean, Chelsea's dilemma is still going to be that Havertz doesn't actually want to be a number 9. Like, that is not what he wants to be because he knows he can't, be himself in that role. If you think, Bayern Munich are interested in signing Kai Havertz, and that's as, the long-term replacement for Thomas Muller. That's not to be the new Lewandowski. It's to be the Muller. And that's why I find it so interesting, and I'm not convinced that he's not going to be tempted to go and do that because that is going to suit him so well. I love Kai Havertz as a footballer. I think he's great, but he's not going to be a prolific goal scorer, I don't think. His conversion rate, I don't know what it is exactly, but he had a lot of chances. He had a lot of chances in that game. And yeah, there was a couple of good saves, but if you had an actual number 9, you'd expect the conversion rate to be higher than it was.
Yeah. As long as he's getting the chances, he'll convert some, as you say, it will be low. His XGI, his expected goal involvement in game week 27, was 1.03, and he got a goal. He got 1. Yeah. And then in game week 28, 1.23. You will find very few players in the last 2 game weeks have hit a 2.26 XGI. This doesn't happen. Yeah. So the good thing is he's so involved and Potter loves him. Chelsea with the Champions League coming up have a really interesting fixture run, which will massively affect them in game week 31, I think it is. So their fixtures go, game week 30, it's Wolves. Then they have, I think, 3 days rest. Then they play Madrid on the Wednesday night, Brighton on the Saturday in game week 31. And then on the following Tuesday, it's Madrid again. So they will play Madrid, Brighton, Madrid in 6 days. It's a Wednesday, Tuesday Champions League. So I think that game week 31 against Brighton at Stamford Bridge is going to see mass rotation. So your Chilwell, even your Havertz and Reece James owners, squeaky bum time for game week 31. But the rest of the schedule looks all right, I think.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, I've got a dilemma actually because I've got Havertz and I've got João Felix, and I only wanted both of those for the game week we've just had. And now you look at Chelsea's fixtures for the next, it's obviously a double. And it's not a bad one, but obviously I need to bring Haaland back in because he's absolutely on fire.
Yeah.
It's a real dilemma, actually. I don't know what gives there.
Yeah. You might have to ride out no Haaland for a week and just to have those two Chelsea.
Might have to, but it feels like it depends. If he scores another 5 for Norway in the international break, there's absolutely no way I can't get him in. It would mean he's got 14 goals in 3 games or something stupid. It'll be absurd.
He's ridiculous at the moment. Good to see so many in the chat. Some like the Havertz shout, some don't, and we get that. If Chelsea fans don't rate Havertz, then why would we get him? I don't know, Nuclear. I think there's a lot of Chelsea fans that do rate Havertz. I absolutely love him. I tweeted earlier, Dean. So the FPL community, including from the 218 in the chat right now, probably 100 of them plus bought Ollie Watkins at the weekend. I almost guarantee it. Guys in the chat, if you bought Ollie Watkins at the weekend, give us a yes. And if you didn't, just give us a no. And it's probably going to be about 50-50. Nothing wrong with the Ollie Watkins shout. I like it. I think it was a good one. And he got the assist. I just preferred Havertz. But what was hilarious, I tweeted earlier, and I knew it'd get some nibbles. Watkins owners, if you could swap Kai Havertz for Watkins now, would you? And honestly, I got 63 comments of pretty much people saying a one-word answer, no, because they're so protective over Ollie Watkins. But Ollie Watkins has had his game against Bournemouth at home now has a slightly difficult double. Chelsea have a good double. And then Kai Havertz plays Bournemouth. So for me, like massively on top, Kai Havertz owners, because they've now got the better fixtures. They didn't necessarily have that last week because Villa had Bournemouth. And he got more points. And in the chat, I'm getting a lot of no's. Those that are on yes probably don't want to admit it, which they should admit it. It's still a good buy, but loads of no's.
I nearly went there. Trust me, I very nearly went there. I just decided in the end to go double Chelsea because the fixture they had, and I didn't know who was going to get the goals, Felix or Havertz. And it turned out they both did, so it turned out all right.
That was a great double up there, mate. If they combine for a goal and an assist during the double game week, and you've got both, that's a huge differential.
Yeah, I know. This is what I'm thinking. We'll see how this international break goes, obviously, because like a lot could go wrong for my team planning in the next week. But it's a temptation, I've got to admit. I've also got Kane in there in the middle of those two. Like maybe I could take
maybe Kane out for Haaland. Maybe. Don't mind that. He's on a single game week. And Spurs are so poor.
Yeah, it might protect me too. Don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right, well, let's move on. We still need to get your Fulham run. I want to know a little bit about the Mitro business and about also Bruno, because I didn't watch the game and I've seen people saying, should Bruno have been punished a little bit more than we saw? So let's move on to Dean's notebook.
Okay, yeah, so get ready, people. We'll start with Fulham. Obviously, in case you don't know, I'm a Fulham fan, Fulham season ticket holder, and I'm in love with Alexander Mitrovic. And I still am. Do you know what? More than ever.
Wow, okay.
I hate this backlash. It has been absolutely absurd. Particularly what's annoying me is the Fulham fans that have been turning on him. Like, absolutely ludicrous. Let me just see if I can find this screenshot of one thing that one fan... Right, I'll cut out the swearing. Basically, the tweet said, "I'm sorry, but that is BS from Mitrovic. I don't want it at my club. Huge game for us. You absolute something." Calls him a swear word. And I'm like... And quite a few people didn't go quite as hard as that tweet. That ended up getting pulled because of all the abuse. But... a lot of people were on his back. I'm like, hang on. There's a reason that Fulham have had success this season. And it's because they've been aggressive. They've been hard to play against. They've been a little bit nasty at times. And they've got a ruthless streak about them. It all comes from Alexander Mitrovic, right? Yeah. Mitrovic hadn't been sent off for Fulham for 5 seasons before this, right?
Okay, that's surprising.
He gets a lot of yellows. Yes, he obviously gets wound up. But he doesn't get red cards. And he lost his head here. The reason he lost his head here is because this referee, this isn't the first time he's had bad decisions against us. This is the 4th game in the past year that this referee has made bad decisions against our team. We knew it coming into the fixture. The players were aware of the fact that, oh, no, we don't get things off this guy. During the match itself, Fulham had 2 opportunities, 2 fouls in the box against Mitro that were not looked at by VAR. One of them, a push by Luke Shaw on Mitro. It's a penalty. He goes up to head it, and Shaw pushes him in the back, and Mitro goes off balance and misses the ball. It's completely passed by, right? So there's that. Anthony comes on and kicks someone 10 seconds later, not even looked at. So there's all this bubbling under for Fulham while they're trying to get to an FA Cup semi-final at Wembley.
Yeah.
And then, yes, of course, it's a red card for Willian and it's a penalty. That's fine. But what Mitro is angry about is the fact he's gone to look at the screen for this, but wouldn't earlier on in the game for decisions that would have been the same outcome, I think, for Fulham if he'd have had a look at it. So there's a lot to take in from it. Like, whatever way you look at it, Mitro can't barge into a referee, obviously, but it's kind of in his nature, and sometimes he can't help himself. Like, I'm not saying that makes it okay, but like, I can't do anything about his personality. This is who he is. And like, anyone that thinks, well, a few people like, well, this isn't what we want at our football club, maybe we have to look for a new forward. You can't replace Alexander Mitrovic at a club like Fulham.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't happen. We've tried to look for someone else. Mark says, Dean, your manager sets the tone. Marco Silva has been an unbelievable example to this team and to this support base. Like, what Marcus Silva has been able to invigorate in this squad compared to where we were under Scott Parker, like the softest team around, to what we've got now. Like, it's given us an edge, Mark. And like, that's what you need to survive in top level football.
People forget it's a newly promoted team. Like, this is a team like Bournemouth that just came up to the Premier League, and look at the difference,
Yeah.
You're safe.
Fatal says, stop crying, Dean. Not really crying. I'm just like, it's just annoying that like I'm on the other side. I don't actually mind Mitro getting sent off, to be honest. Like, it's annoying. I'm more annoyed at like the Fulham fans that turned against him. And like, to be fair, like, there's not loads and loads of them, but there was enough that it wound me up. A 10-game ban, people are talking about.
That is. It's not been helped by, who was it, the ref guy that came out and said he'd support it.
Yeah. Hang on. Sachin says, it's irrelevant, mate. United didn't get 2 pens last week. Didn't see their manager.
I'm spotting the United fans in the chat.
Anyone else losing their head? But what about Ten Hag when he's having digs at Arsenal and saying, well, they haven't had any injuries this season. Let's see how they deal with injuries. Arsenal have had injuries to like key players this season.
Jesus and Zinchenko.
Yeah, like don't think that Man United haven't had agendas of their own this season. But anyway, Mitro, obviously, like, if he's not in this Fulham team, kind of forget. The problem is here, right? Fulham season, it'll probably fade out from here because Mitro's not there. The team already like struggling for minutes. Andreas Pereira, think of someone like Andreas, like, and how much energy he's had to put into this season, right? He hasn't played a season like this all season with this much intensity ever. He's been a bit part player, even when he's gone out on loan in other leagues, and he has played quite a few games. It's not in the Premier League. And so there are like, he's not going to be able to maintain it. Willian, I know he's been sent off, but he couldn't maintain it. So there's a few things like that going to creep in Fulham here. And it might be like we get this world against us mentality for a couple of weeks, but yeah, it might be that Fulham fade a little bit now. So if you got Andreas, if you got Mitro, it might be time to probably move on for that. But yeah, rant over, people. Rant over. Therapy session done. Let's move on.
Dean being Conte. I love that. And yeah, Leo, we won't carry on with Fulham, but you're right. Like, a good way of summarising Palhinha's player of the season and amazing. And rightly player of the match in a game Fulham lost. That's always nice to see. I like it when the team that still played really well and were unlucky not to win that game were still rewarded at least with player of the match.
Mate, yeah. We'd have beaten him.
Although United will be watching that going, I'll have a bit of him next season, please.
Maybe. But yeah, anyway. An old Fulham manager is coming back to the Premier League, people.
Who?
Roy Hodgson.
Oh, yeah. Uncle Roy.
Is probably, very likely, about to return to Crystal Palace. Spoke to someone about this a couple of hours ago, and they're kind of ironing out the contract right now. Could be announced Wednesday, Thursday.
Just like a short-term thing to the end of the season. He's 75.
Thing. Hey, 75. Yeah. But look, here's the thing. From an FPL point of view, Palace defenders suddenly become interesting. Yeah. Like, this is the thing. Like, in Palace's fixture list coming up, their next 6 games are against teams in a relegation scrap. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, they are.
Like, it's unbelievable. The next 6 games are literally against the 6 teams that are below them in the league.
Oh, my God, Dean, it gets even better. So, Leicester, Leeds, Southampton, Everton, Wolves, West Ham, the next 6. Then they play Spurs. Then they play Bournemouth, Fulham, Forest to end the season. That run is insane.
It's insane. They literally are... And they've literally got cup finals to stay in the division because... Yeah, and Roy Hodgson, look, he's not going to get them scoring many goals, but what he will do is he'll keep them in those games right till the end. They'll be decided by 1 goal. half the time they'll go to Palace, half the time they'll go to the other team, right? Wilfried Zaha will be used as he's always used Zaha as like his decider when he was at Palace in his last stint. I know things didn't work out at Watford last time, but trust me, like I know the conditions that he was working under there and the contract. Look, a lot of things didn't go as they were supposed to go at Watford, and it got away from him. The fan base turned on him. Don't think that will happen at Crystal Palace, even though they won't be like overjoyed at Hodgson coming back here. But as an FPL players, we kind of should be excited because I think there'll be, to have Palace players that you can call upon in 9 games against relegation rivals who aren't going to be scoring many goals and are going to be shut out. I honestly think that I could see me ending this season with a couple of Crystal Palace players, which I definitely didn't see coming before last week when they contacted Roy Hodgson.
With 3 weeks to go of the season, they play Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, Forest at home. That's 3 clean sheets under Uncle Roy to keep them up.
It could easily be. It could easily be.
They don't double and they don't blank. So they do not have any blank game week fixtures. Nothing glamorous with the doubles, but no blanks either. So again, a team we could definitely look at.
Yeah. So, get looking, people. When this international break, maybe even let your nailed-on Palace player that's going to play week after week after week. I mean, we have to obviously wait. Like this contract, this isn't signed and sealed just yet, but it is looking like Roy Hodgson is going to be Palace manager. Like this is almost probable at this stage rather than possible. So look out for it this week. And once it's cemented, think about who your Palace asset is going to be because, I think it will be worthwhile. The last thing just to mention is João Felix. Chelsea really want him. They really want him now. I think they probably regret not taking up the obligation when they could have. But at the time, to be fair to them, they didn't know how he would take to the Premier League. They didn't know how this would all work out. And you've got to be careful, obviously. It's £100 million purchase. If he'd have flopped and then they had to pay £100 million for someone, doesn't reflect well and it's not a great piece of business. But as it stands, they don't even have an option because the option wasn't on the table. Because from Atletico Madrid point of view, why should they give Chelsea first option? They've got obligation or they don't.
He's now open to the rest of the market, including other Premier League clubs that knows he can do it in that league.
No, he can do it.
Newcastle won't want to go Newcastle over Chelsea, but they'll match Chelsea's sort of money.
Yeah, it's obviously got a lot of money, 100 million. So there won't be that many clubs in for him. But I hope someone competes with him here because it will get interesting.
Do you think Atletico would lower that though? Do you think knowing, because they're in a little bit of financial trouble, I think-ish, would they take a sort of 8? Is it for them? We're only selling this player if we get the price.
At the moment, At the moment, that's what they're saying. Yeah, and they seem pretty stubborn about it. I think, especially considering Felix is doing so well. Like they're expecting, and think about it too. Like if say Bayern Munich can't get Havas, what about if they were to try and get João Felix? Again, I don't know if they could afford him, but there's a lot to weigh up there. But for Chelsea, I know that they do plan to have talks reasonably soon, probably next month with Atletico Madrid, just to see what is actually the situation we're looking up here? How much is it going to be? What are the terms? What are the conditions? When can we do it? So you'll be relieved, I'm sure, if that does happen. The Nkunku thing does complicate things a bit with him arriving, because if he wasn't, I think they just go ahead and have got this done. But Nkunku, like when I talk to people, there's a possibility that he's used as a false 9 as well as the position that Felix is currently playing. So there's a lot of things to weigh up.
Yeah, and with Mudryk and Sterling sniffing around, you don't necessarily need Nkunku and another, but
Hudson-Odoi returning.
Oh, yeah, he's FPL Rob says, "Hi guys, Havas pump paid off, but Uncle Roy is Leicester up next. That's not going to end well for him." Yeah, it could be a fun first game there, Leicester Palace. Haley says Mount and money to keep Felix. Yeah, I don't think Mason Mount will be going to Spain though, but it'll be interesting to see where he lands. It's looking
Mount at Atletico Madrid. Not sure about that.
Yeah, I don't know Simeone. It does feel like a Simeone style player though. He likes his hard work.
I'll check it out, Haley, just in case, because if you are right there, I will be kicking myself for not writing that story.
Nuclear says Simeone's strict at selling his players. Yeah, I guess so. Although letting Felix go on loan shows us that he doesn't quite want him. or wants to try and cash in. Mark says,
Johnny,
did Potter's negativity cost you the game on Saturday? Absolutely it did, Mark. I hate managers that go and put centre-backs on for the sake of it when you're cruising in a game where you're dominating the ball, but they're like, oh, we've got to protect our lead at 2-1. Now, sure, 2-1 can be a dangerous scoreline, but when you haven't got the ball, you can't score. And Everton didn't really have the ball. They scored from a set piece in that first goal. Just carry on playing the same way, Chelsea. The whole cliche of attack is the best form of defence, for me, genuinely sticks quite often in this game. Keep the ball, keep trying to score, a bit like Arsenal do. You don't see Arteta doing that. You see Arteta go 2 up and go and get the third goal, go kill the game off. Potter hasn't really done that, and it was a really cautious approach. Bringing Chalobah came on. I know it was Koulibaly's error, but it was just the kind of, we can take our foot off the gas now. And yeah, fair play, because I thought it was a really good goal from Sims, who's didn't really know much about him, but he looks like a sort of Sean Dyche style forward. He's 23. He's not a kid anymore, but I think Dyche will give him some minutes now.
He's better than Morpay, isn't he? So he's already shown that. At least he's got some front about him and can charge through. He looks very driven, doesn't he? And he's a big lad. I mean, that's the sort of player you can just imagine Dyche absolutely loving. And you want that hunger in someone too to prove a point. And he looks like he's got that too. So could be a hero at Everton by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think so. Good to see so many in the chat. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Only 57 of you have now. Thought we were more popular than that, mate.
Yeah, never mind.
Let's move on to Pimp My Team, and then we're going to be checking out some fixtures with the Ben Crellin spreadsheet. But first up, let's see how Dean and I both got on this weekend.
Yeah, 73 points for my lads this week. Played with 10 men, obviously. I mean, look at the defence. Like, I got nothing out of the defence. And then luckily, everyone else that played ahead of that delivered. So it was good. A good week to captain Saka and get 36 points. Yeah, happy. Very happy. And, reasonably well. Yeah, pretty well primed now for the big double game week 2 when I'll be going and using the bench boost, obviously. So yeah, a couple of decisions to make over who goes in and out. I've actually got 2 transfers for that next game week 2. So if I want, I can make 2. I'm not sure I'll need them, but it depends. It depends what state we're in by the end of this break. But yeah.
What we do with Arsenal players is going to be key because they're playing so well, so it seems silly moving them on. But knowing you can, say, swap a Martinelli to a Maddison that's got 2 fixtures and then Bournemouth after that. Arsenal's fixtures go Leeds in 29, which is good, but it's only a single game week. But then they play Liverpool away, West Ham away. If we're free hitting in 32, which I'm doing, we can forget the Southampton fixture because we can bring them in. And then in 33, they play Man City and then Chelsea and then Newcastle and then Brighton. It's literally the worst run of games. And then they end the season with Forest and Wolves. So we want them then. But I think we can afford to go without Arsenal, knowing we'll be covering them in 32 for Southampton if we free hit. Or I will be. I know you've used your free hit, Dean, so maybe you won't. But I don't know how many Arsenal I want. I think I still want Saka regardless of fixture. But maybe that's enough. I don't know. What's your take?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't want to overthink this too much. I mean, I put so much emphasis on the double game weeks last time, and it turned out that actually a couple of people with the singles would have been absolutely adequate and might have even prepared me better. Obviously, I'm talking about the week when, Solly March, I think I ended up with 11 points from Solly March when really we should have done better because he had a goal later given to him and stuff like that. But in hindsight, there was other picks I could have made that would have been equally as good. And I think that was the week, and I've just got it in front of me now, when Martinelli and Gabriel I'd left on the bench so that I could bring Brighton double game weekers into the team. So this time around, I am actually going to be a little bit more open-minded about picking players that aren't on double game weeks and basically looking at Arsenal as that. So at the moment, so I'll have Gabriel, Saka and Martinelli at home against Leeds. I don't think I'm changing that, to be honest. I could like overthink that a little and be like, oh, Luke Shaw, he could come in for Gabriel, gets 2 bites at the cherry. Newcastle and Brentford. I don't think Man United will keep a clean sheet against Newcastle. Or at least there's a good chance they don't keep a clean sheet at Newcastle. And then Brentford are actually pretty good. And we just seen Fulham go and score at Old Trafford. So why can't Ivan Toney go and score if he's still allowed to play football by then? Score a goal at Old Trafford. So there's going to be things like that to juggle up. But at the moment, my hunch is that I've got a lot of double game weekers already. And so I'll probably stick with those Arsenal assets I've got because I trust them.
Yeah, that's fair. And I like it because a lot in the chat will be big on a lot of FPL pods and FPL Twitter, where a lot will be being advised or perhaps looking to sell their Arsenal assets. So it's really interesting to get your take there, because I think you're reminding us of a really key, important factor here. Arsenal are the best team in the league. Yes, it's a single game week, but it's Leeds at home, and they're still incredibly good players you want for the run-in, regardless of fixtures to come. So definitely worth bearing that in mind, for sure. I've just been tweeted. Someone just tweeted me. Maybe he's not in the chat. Nathan saying, "Hi, Janny. We won't go into this, Dean, but I had to let you know. Ask Dean, why was a Manchester-born ref given the game in the first place?" I guess he's referring to the Fulham United game. He's clearly enjoying your rant as well.
I saw something about this earlier, and he's from, I don't know, a different part of Manchester or something. I saw other people talk about this. I decided not to go down that rabbit hole. I think, as you can tell, I've been worked up enough in the last 24 hours trying to get this out of my system. And I didn't need to know that the ref was born outside of Old Trafford or something. So I've left that
alone. Let's move on. 3 Brighton assets. I love the fact you kept them. I did too. Just to touch on Brighton, they were so good. I know it was against Grimsby, but Evan Ferguson, he's not an FPL thing just yet because the midfielder's been doing so well. But this kid's going to be great for FPL in the not too distant. He won't be a 4.5 million option for long either. But as an 18-year-old, just so classy.
Really is. Yeah, he's going to have a big future. He's doing really well this season to make this sort of impact. I really like watching him.
Yeah, and McAllister did at the weekend play in the midfield 2. Worth noting, we saw, I think, Gross at right back in the midfield 2, which makes McAllister, despite him getting an assist, not so good an FPL option when you compare him to Matoma and March. So for McAllister's owners out there, you're probably fine. He'll probably carry on playing 10 quite a lot, but just bear in mind, De Zerbi is still willing to drop him back into a midfield 2 with Caicedo. And at the weekend, the FPL options in that team massively again look like Matoma, and it looked like March, which was nice to see. Let's move on and have a look at my team. Not so good as 73 points, mate. That is a massive green you got. And captain is so important in this game. And I landed on 55. I captained Kane. Outside of captaincy, I was really happy with my week because, a bit like you, we both went Martinelli over Odegaard.
Yep.
We didn't take hits to get the 11th player in. We both just went, you know what, 10 is fine.
Yeah.
And we both went for a Kai Havertz punt. So when you look at those performances of Martinelli and Havertz, and we both own Kane, we got returns there. And then Saka obviously delivered really nicely. So it was still a good week and a tiny green arrow. I've got 1 transfer now for next week, not the 2, but I'm fairly happy with that. My plan is to bring Maddison in for sure. And I will be selling one of my 2 Arsenal mids. I think that has to be Martinelli now. I think it has to be. Nuclear atoms, just because you captain Saka, let's not go throwing stones. That was a cheap captaincy from Gianni. Nuclear wouldn't be saying that if he hadn't have just got his big haul from Saka. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'll just mention that from the 11 million managers in the world, I think about half captained Kane, or certainly of active managers captained Kane.
He says it was a sheep captaincy from you, mate.
Oh, unbelievable. He wouldn't be saying that if Saka had blanked, put it that way.
No.
So, yeah, there we go.
It's a guess. It's a guess. We're all guessing.
You just get lucky sometimes. Don't forget that, Nuclear. Sometimes you just get lucky.
Yeah.
And there we go. I hope you enjoyed your Watkins move over Havertz, who, it was only 2 or 3 points, but you've had your Bournemouth fixture now. So, and anyway, Chelsea are going to do you in the Champions League. But yeah, Luke is a big Real Madrid fan. I fancy Chelsea in this one, mate. I really do.
Blimey. I didn't realise you two were. Yeah, of course. You got Oh, that's going to be a big fight between you two that
He's
week.
going to spam the chat now with Real Madrid bias. I'm going to have to ignore him.
Yeah.
Let's move on away from my team and my spat with nuclear atoms and move on to some fixture planning. We'll answer your questions today. We're going to make sure we've got enough time to answer loads of your questions. Let's move on to tips and chips. Here we go. This is one of Ben Crellin's. This is his latest spreadsheet. Shout out, Ben. There will be one more, maybe two more versions of this, but all it will be doing will be clarifying some of those likely and unlikely and possible scenarios you see. So we're not expecting double game weeks to fall anywhere outside of or the main double games out of 34 and 37. The only other fixture that will go in is the Brighton Newcastle fixture, which you can see could go in 31. That's possible. Or it's unlikely to go in 35 or 36. Also, that could happen. So that Brighton Newcastle fixture is an additional one which we think will be arranged pretty soon. We also think during the international break, if the doubles are moving to game week 34, we'll be told that during the international break. And if they're not revealed in the international break, we're probably going to assume they're coming slightly later in 37. I think that's the gist of it. But what do we know from these? Well, there are a few teams we can see now that do not double and do not blank, like Arsenal, like Everton. They just want one game every week. But we can also see where the blanks are. Now, with United winning in the FA Cup, and City winning in the FA Cup, Brighton winning in the FA Cup, this all means now we know who blanks in 32 when the FA Cup semi-finals will be. Now, if Fulham had gone and beaten United, the fixture that would have blanked, I think, would have been something like Fulham versus Leeds. So that game against for United could have very easily gone ahead, although I think they were due to play, I can't remember, was it? I can't remember. But what we do now know is with those teams blanking, we are heavily invested in Man United, or maybe just Rashford, but some will own 2 or 3. We're very heavily invested in Brighton, or they blank. We're pretty heavily invested in Chelsea, Kepa, Felix, Havertz, Chilwell. And a few of us have got Man City players outside of Haaland as well as Haaland. So come game week 32, it's going to be difficult for those that perhaps haven't got a free hit to navigate that, or maybe haven't got a wild card. So Dean, what's your loose plan? Make the most of these assets for the double in 29, but maybe look to offload 1 or 2 of them so you're not left too short in 32.
Yeah, that 32 is this is the first time I've seen this, to be honest. So yeah, I'm literally planning this in my head as we're talking. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've got 3 Brighton players already in for the next one, and then I'll just start offloading them one by one, I guess.
Yeah, and you can offload like your Havertz and your Felix style players for 32, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know what I'll do with Havertz. But yeah, I mean, Brighton, looking at that as a blank in 32, I'll just look at their doubles that are still in store, and not sure I'm going to be missing that. I mean, we're assuming it's a Man United Man City FA Cup final now, right? So it's like we're expecting like towards the end of the season that those two are also going to have that on their minds. Like Man City will be going for the title, Man United won't be. So I'm also thinking like by the time we get to those last couple of weeks, like Man United might probably have a cup final coming up. So that Fulham game at the end of the season, I'm wary of, hopeful that we'll get some revenge because they won't be putting out the first team that we're saving them for an FA Cup final. But yeah, this is the biggest week for me, to be honest. Like this is everything. Like the bench boost going in. This is probably the strongest I'm going to be in the rest of the game weeks. I haven't got any chips after this bench boost. So on the back of last week having a good one, yeah, I've got up 500,000 places. I'd sunk that far. The top million is now in sight again, people, and I'm gonna get there. I want to end this season like with a respectable standing, and it's still possible. So I'm going to get through this one, and then we'll start analysing who goes, because there's definitely a few that are going to have to.
And you can always write off a game week by just going, look, a bit like the game week just gone. We were happy with 10. You could be going to 32, and there might be managers out there that go, I'm going to get 8 players out. But I'm going to get good 8 players out. You know, triple Arsenal against Southampton at home. I'm going to still have the popular captaincy option that week, which will probably end up being Saka, or maybe it'll be Salah versus Forest. You could still bring a Salah in, for example. Cover the main bases, but still be short in numbers. And then you still can make the most of future game weeks, because it is worth noting those teams that blank in 32 will all be owed fixtures. So they will all get double game weeks to come. So it's like, you still want some of those in your squad. But I think it's interesting. There's still quite a few managers with a bit like world number one Ali with a wild card. I genuinely am not sure when's the best time to use your wild card. And obviously it's always squad dependent, but you could dead end your team in 32 and wild card in 33. Or you could look to even wild card in something like a game week 36 and just stack up, or 37 on that final last couple of weeks. Likewise, you might come out of the double game week in 29, go for some double game week 1 week punts, and then wildcard in 30 out of that big double. So there's still options there. This plan is really, really useful. We'll know more during the international break. Don't commit to anything yet. We'll steer you through on chasing green arrows on these Monday and Friday streams before we get to the next deadline in 29, when this spreadsheet will probably look a little different because fixtures will be confirmed rather than predictions. There we go.
Madridista says he's thinking of going with Sancho plus Rashford, and you mentioned this off air before we came in.
That
Sancho is like a rising asset, and I think there's definitely an argument to be made here. I mean, United still competitive on 3 fronts, so they're going to have more rotation than most teams at this stage. The fact that the league is probably their lowest priority right now. Like, obviously, they still need to finish strongly to make sure they're in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But they've got 2 cups to go for. And I don't know that Sancho's in the strongest United 11, but that's why I would expect him to probably get increasing minutes here in the Premier League to get his chances. Ten Hag really, really wants to fix Sancho and make this work. Like, he's fixed Rashford. Now he wants to fix Sancho. And it's definitely a chance he could do it. Like, he's been through this long spell out of the team. He's been away to get his head right and start getting better physically. And now he's getting introductions back into the team. Obviously, it was his moment that caused Fulham's downfall at the weekend. I don't think it's a bad shout, to be honest. I don't think many people will be going there, but I can definitely see why there'll be a temptation when you look at those next 3 or 4 United games too. There's some nice fixtures there.
Yeah, I'm tempted. I told Dean just before we came on, Madrista, that I was looking at it too. I mean, if you don't own Maddison, I think he's still the obvious one to go for. But maybe it's Maddison and Sancho. I mean, I've been thinking about Maddison and Barnes, but Sancho started game week 27. He's not been starting games, not many. So the last one Premier League game against Southampton, then again at Fulham, he started. And look, he started over someone like Anthony against Fulham. And that was a big game for him to start, an important game before the international break. So I do wonder if he's getting himself into that 11, but I'd still be worried. Every time a team sheet comes out, I'll be worried. Is it Anthony? Is it Sancho? Is it neither? Is it both? And again, the one thing we're not going to get from him that you'll get from a James Maddison, 90 minutes. You just won't get 90 from Jadon Sancho. But maybe that doesn't matter if the fixture's there and he's playing well. There we go. We'll take some quick fire questions. First one from TechXEO. No, keep Kai. I did mention earlier the rotation, and game week 30 or 31 against Brighton, you might have to take on the chin, Havertz owners. But then 32, the fixtures are still good. Chelsea have good fixtures. I want to hold Havertz, I think, for the rest of the season. Dean, I'll come to you for Torben.
Yeah, Liverpool have had 5 clean sheets before Bournemouth, where they lost 1-0. Question, are we overlooking Liverpool defence? I mean, the problem you've got there is Liverpool's next 3 matches are Man City, Chelsea and Arsenal. I don't think you want any Liverpool defenders during those 3 games, because you really don't know which Liverpool is going to be turning up for those matches. So, no, I don't think you are for them. But after that little spell's over, those 3 matches, you are actually looking at a brighter future for Liverpool's defence, because they've got Leeds, Nottingham Forest and West Ham. So just hold fire for now. But we might get back to a day when you can get a Liverpool defender back in there.
Yeah, it would be fun. Sure, Chilwell. Oh, I'm going to say go Chilwell. He was so unlucky at the weekend. So many chances for Havertz. He's a real threat. He's on the set pieces too. Man United are conceding too many shots. I don't see too many clean sheets for Man United. I'd go Chilwell.
I think so too. Salah for double game week 29.
Ooh, tough fixtures.
It's too tough, man. Like, what evidence do we have that Salah is going to deliver against Man City away and Chelsea away? Barely any. I'm sorry, I just can't see him. I just can't see the possibilities there.
Best 1 week punt, Nuclear Atoms. I think. I like for differentials. I mentioned Jack Harrison earlier. I think his double game week's all right. Arsenal's tough, but then it's Forest at home. But I'm gonna say if I picked one, I'm gonna go with Harvey Barnes. He plays Palace and Villa. I think they're both winnable games. Villa is a big derby for them. Leicester are the home team. I've got a ticket for that with Rob in the chat. I might go Barnes.
Yeah, interesting. Sorry, my phone's going off here. I'm trying to see what's happening. But Dean, did you see the Sancho move versus Fulham? I saw you throw it a minute ago. I'm not exactly sure which one you were talking about. No, maybe I've missed something particular that Sancho did. I did watch the game, so maybe I've just forgotten it. But remind me in the comments, and I'll have another look at that.
I still have my chips available. How would you utilize these going forward? Wow, if you've got all your chips, I would definitely bench boost in 29. And then when you wildcard, you can just make sure you cover bases with double game week. So I would, I don't know. I'd bench boost 29, free hit 32, feels obvious. And then I'd look to wildcard where it suits. Oh, triple captain, by the way. Man City will have a double, right? So I would be triple captain in Haaland if I still had my triple captainship, right? So Man City's double will be Fulham. It will be like probably Fulham and West Ham, and then or Chelsea Brighton. So Fulham and West Ham in game week 34 could be an amazing double to captain Haaland.
Interesting. Bruno or Mitoma for Odegaard. I think I'm going with. I think Mitoma personally, but
Same.
Yeah,
mate, the community is going to go mad for Bruno because there's loads of United fans and because he's just scored. But
that goal, you can't take. You have to
game
take
state
that goal.
Is important, isn't it?
With a pinch of salt. It was against 9 men in a moment of like complete mayhem when the other team had lost its head.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really read too much into that, to be honest. I know I'm obviously a bit biased here, but I don't think that counts for too much, especially when the next game is like 2.5 weeks later or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. There we go. Kane mudded with the Conte situation. No, I don't think so. Is he, Dean?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. I think, look, Conte's obviously thrown his toys out the pram, and Conte will, I think, now lose his job as Tottenham manager before the season gets back underway. Possibly very soon. I mean, they're obviously weighing it up right now. He's explained to Daniel Levy what he was talking about. He's saying it wasn't a dig at you, it was a dig at the players. Harry Kane just takes this sort of stuff on the chin. Like, I think Harry Kane and Conte are that close. It's not like a Harry Kane Pochettino relationship. If anything, like Kane might even see this as a moment to be the man that pulls everything back together here. Like, he is Mr. Tottenham at the moment and they need him. So yeah, there's obviously going to be rumours about him leaving, and there is definitely a chance he does. But let's wait and see what happens and who they actually manage to get back. Because if Poch does come back, especially this season, then it probably will be enough to keep Kane.
Interesting. Lungani says, Fofana, I think, is going to be out for 10 days. Gutted for him. He's got a call up to the France team. And he looks he's been so good. Like, I think he's been one of the standout Chelsea players in the last few games. I'm gutted for him because he's always bloody injured, but I think he's probably going to be fine for the double because 10 days, he should be all right. But with Fofana, when you buy him, you're buying a player that's got a terrible injury record, and unfortunately seems to be one of these players that this is a hamstring issue, but he'll continue to pick up knocks left, right and centre. So whilst he's cheap, he's 4.3 million. If I shop him for a Chelsea defender, I'd try and find the extra money. You spend 6 on Chilwell or 5.8 on James, or if you don't have much, someone like Badia Shiel at 5.0, knowing he won't play in the Champions League, should be fine always for the Prem. So I think I'd probably be swerving him.
No, fair enough. Madridista, Dean, do you remember my feeling was almost right about Palace last week? City got a cheeky penalty. Yeah, I do. Now you mention it, I do remember you backing Crystal Palace to beat Man City, and they didn't, so you were wrong.
Oh,
just kidding, mate. That was a deep. He was very confident, wasn't he, about that one?
He was.
And yeah, it did take a late Haaland penalty, so fair play. Like that wasn't a bad hunch to have at all.
I'll just finish with a comment from FPL Rob. If we go to the Leicester game, Harvey Barnes, don't shout too loud. The guy sat to my left absolutely hates him because it's Rob's season ticket I've gone and watched the Leicester games with.
Okay.
And yeah, I was so surprised that he gets such a huge amount of stick, Barnes, from the home fans. And you don't really see that on TV, or you wouldn't know, but he can be a really frustrating player. And I think Rob also pointed out something like Salah is really good against top teams. And he does play well against top teams. There's a few comments saying that. But Liverpool are so off it at the moment, away from home. And both these games are away against City and Chelsea. So still one to swerve, even for the fact that Salah does well against top six. Liverpool are way off it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Before you leave, it's so good to have so many in the chat tonight. If you fancy giving us a subscribe or hitting the like button, that'd be awesome. We will be back on Friday. We will be back next Monday. We've got some fun shows lined up for you in the international break, so stay tuned for that. But for now, he's been Dean, I've been Gianni, and we've been chasing Green Arrows.